Welcome to the Trailer Island podcast. I'm Alex, and always I'm joined by
Matthew
and
Isolation
Steve. Poor Isolation Steve.
Steve, you look so
Yay.
isolated.
I look so what?
Isolated.
Oh, thank you. Now, the reason I'm going to be saying what a lot tonight is obviously I'm in self-isolation. I'll be laggy. I will be like Modern Warfare in the 2000s, just really, really behind the ball.
That's a niche reference there to an older video game about lag times. There you go. Steve is actually operating in pure lag, and yes, poor Steve is stuck in the other side of the island in quarantine because he's been up to no good, haven't you?
That's correct.
Naughty.
Yeah.
Well, what are we doing? Oh, that's right. We had to pay for this movie, didn't we?
We did, and I will. So this is a Disney Plus subscription movie. It was in cinemas, but we watched it on Disney Plus. Steve, I know you watched it in theaters.
I went to the theater. It's got nothing to do with the isolation.
No. I will admit, for a subscription you're already paying for, I thought $30 in the end was actually a little steep.
Yeah, well, there were two of us that watched it, and I figured, well, that's, saved the price of having to go in, and that's probably cheaper than 2 tickets anyway.
My only question is once you've paid that money, can you re-watch it as many times as you like, or is it like,
yes.
Okay, that's all right. You've essentially bought it then.
You've bought it until it's eventually free for everyone else in about October.
You know what? As a business model, I kind of don't mind that.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Whether the movie was worth it, I don't know.
This is what we're about to find out.
Yeah, Steve,
I enjoyed going to see a Marvel movie back in a theater. I like that. That's good. It's a nice feeling.
Would he like to maybe introduce the movie in that case?
Please, Steve, would you?
Okay, this week we are doing Black Widow.
I tell people my sister moved out west. You're a science teacher. Your husband, he renovates houses. You're thinking about moving, but you're gonna wait until the interest rates go down.
That's not my story. Before I was an Avenger, I made mistakes. And a lot of enemies.
His call sign's Taskmaster. He controls the Red Room. They're manipulated, fully conscious, but no choices.
I should have come back for you. How many others are there?
Enough.
We have to go back to where it all started. So they never do that to anyone again.
We're a family. We fight with you.
You want Wayne.
I've always found it best not to look into the past.
Okay, you got a plan, or shall I just stay duck and cover?
My plan was to drive us away.
Well, your plan sucks.
At some point, we all have to choose between what the world wants you to be and who you are. I made my choice. I'm done running. Here's what's gonna happen.
Natasha, don't slouch.
I'm not slouching.
You're going to get a back hunch.
Listen to your mother.
Oh my God, this.
Up.
All
Listen.
right, enough. All of you.
I didn't say anything. That's not fair.
Music in that trailer, spot on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Music in that movie, though, less so.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that's a really good trailer. That really makes me quite hyped for this movie, and I think it's been well documented across this podcast that my excitement level for Marvel films has become quite diluted since Endgame came out. Because again, for me, I had that closure. But I did see that trailer, and again, that soundtrack in that trailer really lends that sense of sort of epicness to it, which did get me excited.
That trailer, I like that trailer. I think it's good. But that led me to believe that this was a film before she was ever involved in the Avengers at all.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And, she's like, we've got to go back to where it all began. And before I was an Avenger, I'm like, ooh, we're going to get a bit of a pre-story here. Turns out, no, it's right in the middle of everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes, you are correct.
Yeah, I was lied to.
This trailer, I suppose, in that sense, is a little misleading, I guess. Steve, you're a huge Marvel fan. How did you feel about where this film was set within the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Well, see, I also have a problem with this film because of Endgame as well, and I don't think that this movie needs to exist. And when I saw the trailer, I was like, this movie probably definitely doesn't need to exist either.
Without giving away any spoilers, what do we get from this film that has an impact on all the other films? Well, I don't think it's much.
We know where she gets the vest that she wears in Endgame from, and that's probably about it. It's a shame, really, because of where this film is set. And I think it's in the trailer. We meet her, for all intents and purposes, her family, which is great. But there's such good characters to then watch this movie within chronological order. I think in the subsequent films you go, but where are they? I want more of these characters. I suppose a similar thing did again happen. It's such a great example of a good prequel is Rogue One. Is you have all these great characters and they essentially had no choice but to mainly kill most of them off because they couldn't appear in the films that came afterwards.
I was thinking more along the lines, especially in the Marvel sense of things, Captain Marvel, right? That was essentially a prequel film as well. And that film existed so that we knew that Captain Marvel was coming into Endgame. It was set, it was released between Infinity War and Endgame, and it did set up some plot elements. This doesn't do any of that. Well, there's no world building here.
I think it's the first Avengers film, maybe Iron Man 2 or the very first Avengers film, I forget which one, where we do see a bit of her little flashbacks to when she was in Russia or wherever it is. I think it's
Age of Ultron.
Oh, Age of Ultron. It's one of them. And that did always intrigue me, is those little threads of her backstory. Again, having never read any of the comics, I knew nothing about her backstory. I don't know if this is accurate to what the comics have put forth in the past. But I was excited about the idea of seeing where the super spies get their training from. That's just, what a great premise. That's always... And then in this universe as well, it's so different from people who are literally gods or who have superpowers. She's just a really well-trained spy or super soldier, if you want to call it that. So I was really excited about the idea of, again, like you say, Alex, that line in the trailer, go back to where it all started. It's like, that's great. I don't know that the film really does that. I don't think it delivers on that promise.
No, and if you're a spy... If you're like a super spy, you're part of this group where a bunch of you are all like really good at fighting and stuff. If you want to meld into the area that you are, maybe not be decked out all in black leather with stuff covered all over you, or
even white leather,
Yeah, exactly. Like what's the point? Why do that? Because you're gonna stand out, especially when there's like half a dozen of you. It's like, well, okay, these guys are up to something. Maybe we should call the cops. I don't know.
Yeah, people always make fun of James Bond for wearing a suit, but in a crowd, if you're wearing a suit, you do kind of blend in a bit more, don't you? As opposed to him coming in full combat gear, that kind of thing.
And if we can lead into maybe the first issue that I had with this film, is that
shall we talk about the plot first?
No, we probably should.
No, because there is none.
There isn't a plot.
Oh,
no. We can talk about the plot. That is fine.
Would you like to give us
a brief overview? It's set between Civil War and Infinity War.
Steve, have you got a dog with you in isolation?
I do.
Why did you? How did you get a dog onto this island?
It's always been here.
So when we've been nearly starving to death, you've been hiding this dog. We could have, we could have had a barbecue or something.
I think it's time. I'm happy to get this off my chest once and for all. I'm not taking in as many poos as you think I am.
Oh, I had been trying to keep a tally, so this is a shock to me.
Oh dear.
Just because
dear.
in my capacity as self-proclaimed island doctor, I do like to monitor our vital signs.
I'm sorry, my stools have been very misleading.
I'll forgive you. But you got a dog with you. All right, that's another character we've got now.
Woohoo! Okay, yes, the plot. So the plot is, Matt, do you want to talk us through what's
I'm
going
probably the worst person to do this because, please, Steve, you'll have a better grasp of this.
So this is set between Civil War and Infinity War. It's Natasha goes on the run after disobeying the Sokovia Accords, and as soon as she gets on the run, she reconnects with her sister, who's just been recently de-brainwashed, and her sister had been an assassin for the Russians. And after she gets de-brainwashed, they decide they're going to take down the whole brainwashing scheme of the Russians.
Or just a very out-of-depth Ray Winston. Who cannot,
very, very lazy Ray Winston.
Yeah, he cannot do a Russian accent at all. It's pretty concise. I mean, we get to meet her, people from her past, shall we say, people who raised her and aided in this brainwashing. And there were some really cool moments with those characters. The dad character, I forget his name.
David Harbour.
He's such a good character in this. I know that he's played for comedy more than anything else, but for the most part, I thought it all landed.
He plays Alexei.
Yeah, I thought he was great. But again, I mean, the issue we have with this movie is you then want more of those characters later on. I also found it a bit... It's suggested in this movie, I think I'm right in saying that he's been given the same treatment that Captain America's been given.
That's right, yeah.
And therefore has the same abilities. For me, again, being what we'll call a casual fan, I think the film wasn't clear enough initially as to how that had happened and how the Russians also had it as well as the Americans. But again, I'm sure people who follow these movies more closely than I do probably know what was going on there. It took me a while to catch. I was like, okay, so he has had that treatment. He is a Russian Captain America. That's that down and out Captain America, basically.
I don't want to get too much into the lore here, but in Civil War, you see the Winter Soldier kills Tony Stark's father and mother, then takes that blue serum.
Oh, so that's when the Russians get
Russians.
Okay, because obviously Bucky's had the same treatment, hasn't he? Yeah. Okay, sure. So
it's not a stretch of the imagination to think that he's got Cap abilities.
Yeah,
he's quite resentful because Cap's the revered one, and he's now stuck in a gulag.
Which in my opinion was the best sequence in the film, was trying to break him out of that gulag. That was where the film really sort of...
The film kicked off on that second act when he joined the cast. Yes, he's in the start of it with the prologue, but I didn't like the first act. I thought that little prologue was great. The first act was just... I don't know, they stripped away everything that we'd learned and become to enjoy about the Black Widow Natasha Romanoff character.
Yeah.
And she just was brought down to just someone who can kick butt real good. Then she catches up with her sister and they have the most useless fight. They get in a big brawl for no reason. They're like, oh, why are we fighting?
But this is my biggest issue with this movie, and it was one that I sort of was becoming aware of as I was watching it, and I was thinking about how I felt about this movie after I'd seen it, and I realized with a sense of oncoming dread that this is an action movie where I cannot wait for the action scenes to end. The action, all of the action, including the finale, which should have been great on this big flying fortress thing. I was bored. I was more entertained by whatever the dialogue scenes were. They are of mixed goodness, shall we say? But yeah, I mean that fight scene in the apartment between those two, I was going I know that they're not. Just let's skip this. Let's get to the emotional long lost sisters meeting each other as opposed to them just trying to beat each other up. So the any
conversation with David Harbour, Rachel Weisz, Florence Pugh, and Scarlett Johansson, those little the dinner table scene. Right, fantastic.
Absolutely.
That's the strength.
It's all within the one room, and for an action movie, that is not a good thing to be able to say. I think. I
think it's a terrific thing to say. I think it says a lot about the quality of action scenes that were put together for this film. I think the action in this film really, really lets it down.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, you brought up one character there, and the actress Florence Pugh, who plays Natasha Romanoff's sister. Well, I guess sister in quotes. Yelena. She was probably my favorite character outside of Alexei. She brought some sass. She was had a bit of attitude. I mean, it was a very convenient plot point about her getting this mist in her face, and all of a sudden she's no longer brain taken over.
I do think that was a bit of a strange coincidence.
That was just some loose writing. I was just like, that first act, man, I have not seen a bad act that bad in a Marvel film in a long time. I can't think of a worse start to a Marvel film.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I did enjoy the title sequence, and I enjoyed the sort of a cappella cover of the Nirvana song. It smells like...
Yeah.
I liked it. I liked that cover. I thought that was kind of cool.
That was so on the nose for me. I was just like, nah, this isn't cool.
Well, I mean, I don't go into I mean, I know it is on the nose, I agree, but I wasn't looking for subtlety. But I thought, you know what, that's kind of cool.
I get it that they're, it was a female vocalist and they're doing the whole girl power thing in this movie and stuff.
Yeah.
But like, if they're, it's got this Russian theme, it's red. It should, the big Red Army choir noise should be coming through, and then you get the vibe.
Steve, you mentioned how lackluster the soundtrack is in this movie. I was thinking they should have had the same sound or the similar soundtrack to Hunt for Red October. That terrifically Russian soundtrack that movie has would have worked really well for this film. I think they should
have got Henry Jackman in to actually do this, because Henry Jackman did a fantastic sort of espionage spy thriller score for The Winter Soldier.
Yeah, sure.
But they didn't, did they? I don't know who they got.
I didn't.
Some person.
No, the music didn't stand out. I did think it was shot quite well.
It looked fine.
I thought it looked really good. And again, Alex, you would have been the same on Disney. Because we were at home, we could stream this in 4K. I thought that looked pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would have been a different experience having seen it in theaters first. I won't lie to you guys. This will not be surprising. I used this as a dry run for if in a world we had the choice of streaming No Time to Die or going to the theater as to what would be better. And I think, but I would suggest not to... Cinemas, I think, will always be great for just the experience. But if we were, for example, in a lockdown when No Time to Die came out, I would be okay with being able to stream it at home, I think, provided I could see it in theaters down the road to have that experience at some point.
I don't feel the same about that when it comes to Top Gun. When that comes out, I want to see that on a big screen.
And that does look spectacular when that's out. That's the end of the year, isn't it? That comes
out.
Apparently
it's coming out. Apparently they're releasing it. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. Just one thing I wanted to know about the director, Kate Shortland, who is an Australian director. She, I think you could have put anyone directing this film and it would have looked how it looked when it came out.
I do think made by committee was a phrase that came to mind when I was watching this, especially again, we have seen this thing a few times, and it is a shame that this happens. I think when you have a film like this, which should and could be a really good girl power movie, some executives get too nervous that they get that wrong and it misfires, and so they make it too safe. And I think there were moments in this movie that were made too safe in that aspect of being, a female. Again, I always come back to Alien, which was, 1979, and that movie is such a good empowerment movie for women everywhere, just because of how strong a character Ellen Ripley is. But they weren't really trying to do that. Like, it's just a well-written character.
Okay, so Hawkeye is getting his own series, right? So that means we've got every one of the core Avengers has now had their own little bits and pieces, all right? And yet you've got Black Widow, all right, whose story has, I think, objectively been told really well over the course of Captain America's, over the course of Avengers. We see her going from this really detached human being over the course of 10 years to becoming someone who wholly embraces the fact that these people, the Avengers, are her family. All right, that's the story done. All right, she dies in Endgame. We know that. Everyone knows that. This felt like the guys at Marvel or Disney were just like, we need to have a Black Widow film because we sort of owe it to Scarlet.
Yeah. I would suggest that her and who plays Hawkeye, Jeremy Renner, that those two have been overlooked in the Avengers over the first 10 years, I think, perhaps, in not having their own, I suppose, solo moments. And I think, like you say, making a film is a really good way of addressing that balance. But I don't know. It's funny, really, because if this film had come out when it was originally scheduled to come out, which I think was about a year and a half ago, I would have suggested that the movie was rushed. But it does feel odd saying that now, knowing that it was delayed by a year and a half because of COVID. But I'm assuming it was a locked-off cut when they delayed it. Because I feel like this movie was made too quickly without, maybe it could have had another draft, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think there was just a little too much sort of Maybe EP influence, too much studio influence. I think they were going, no, guys, at the end of the movie, you need to have the big showdown in the sky, you need explosions, you need all that. And they didn't really realize that the best parts of this film are the character and character moments.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd love to see a version of this film as, it sounds weird, I know it's a bit of an exaggeration, but as a drama, and see her dealing with this stuff with her surrogate family as a drama, and they just work. I think that would be terrific. That would actually be a good film.
I want to see a version of this film that is more Bourne Identity, Bourne Supremacy than it is a Marvel film.
Sure.
Yeah, and they just try and do too many things. Like there's just too much going on. Just take out a couple of those plot points, strip it back, focus on family, focus on a little bit of action, and you're going to get a better film because, like you say, like probably the best scene is when it, literally in that second act, everything slows down. It slows completely down. It takes a breath, and characters start talking to each other, and that was really good.
I agree.
I really enjoyed that. And then, and the third act is okay. It sort of finishes exactly as you'd sort of expect it to. And we finish it, and nothing really in the world of this has changed.
Yeah, and that's a big issue when you want to make a prequel film like this, where it has no bearings on what comes afterwards. And talking of having no bearings, this film has one of the weakest villains in terms of Taskmaster. Why is that villain in this movie? You don't need it. You just need Ray Winstone's sort of Blofeld character just looming over the plot of the movie. You know he's there. You don't have to see him. You see him at the end, and he just sends faceless ghouls to stop them from getting to him. You don't need this. That felt so tacked on to me, that character.
I know why that character is in the film, and it's explained why they're in the film, but if it didn't exist in the film, that's fine. You could literally do without it, and it doesn't matter.
I don't think you needed Ray Winstone. I would have preferred seeing Taskmaster there.
Sure.
As a Marvel fan. And I think, if we wanted to redesign it as sort of a Bourne Identity sort of film, then the Taskmaster is a great villain to have.
Sure. I think maybe that the fear at Disney was that, you could have made a really gritty, almost, very violent film out of this. And I think they, again, it's Disney, it's Marvel. They wanted to keep it a little kid friendly, which is fine. that's what they do. That's what the MCU is. But I think they perhaps could have pushed the envelope just a little bit more, maybe. Civil War from memory is a fairly violent movie, and no one's ever really complained about that.
No, you think about the start of Endgame when Arrow Boy, what's his name?
Hawkeye.
Yeah.
He's going to town in Japan or wherever it is.
Yeah.
That stuff's violent. That's super violent. But he has his moment in the sun. Well, it's technically in the rain, but, that stuff's engaging when it's done properly. It doesn't need to be gratuitous. It just needs to be right. It just needs to be choreographed.
We're not talking about blood and gore. We're just talking about action that has consequence.
That's right.
Is all they need to do. It doesn't need to be, you don't need blood splatters or anything like that. Because of the lack of consequence, all those action scenes, you just, like that. There's that car chase where that armored vehicle comes after them.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, that armored vehicle's entrance into this movie looks weird, the way that it just slides into frame.
That whole scene needed another run through CGI.
Vehicles can't move sideways, and then it was weird. It just looks terrible. But again, I didn't enjoy that. The inner child in me should have loved a car chase through whatever city they're in. Where are they in that? Are they in Russia at that point?
Budapest.
Budapest. I should have loved that, but I was sitting there going I know that they're going to get out of it by the skin of their teeth, and let's just get through it. I shouldn't have been thinking that during an action scene.
You know why you should have liked it though, Matt? It's because it's exactly the same action scene that was in Mission Impossible Fallout.
You talking about the... Oh, yeah. No, exactly. And that scene has so much weight to it, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and it's terrific in that little BMW, and they're doing all the stunts and that. And that I'm always glued to the screen when I watch that, and it gets your heart going. This one, it didn't get me involved in that action at all.
Well, for a character like Natasha Romanoff, where everything is about espionage and subtlety, and that the people that are chasing her are meant to be trained in all the same stuff, because that's where she's from, nothing about what they do is subtle.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That world building was lost for that moment. It just fell apart, and that's kind of what I wanted. So, look, as a film, it's okay.
It's not
Like, it's okay.
It's not offensive or bad or anything. It's just it could have been so much better.
It's just not what I was expecting from this character's journey. Perhaps this is a good point to divide our thoughts and give this thing a rating out of what?
Red Mists.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Red Mists.
Ray Winston's.
Ray Winston's. Why is he in this movie?
Magical blue goo. Is that what it was? Like little vials of stuff?
It was little vials of blue goo. Well, yeah, they were there. Weird moving
brain
armored
controlled
vehicles.
pigs.
Brain control pigs. I like that.
Actually, that was good. Yes, I did enjoy that. Again, that whole sequence of that farmstead or wherever it was terrific.
Yeah.
That was really good.
All right, mind control pigs. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Oh, okay. Please, Steve.
For me, it's going to be a 2.5.
Ooh.
I think that because I felt like they owed a movie to Scarlett Johansson, they forgot they had already told a really good Black Widow story over the last 10 years. This film does not need to exist. It's very superfluous. What I would say that is good is that for the first time in about 5 years, there are Marvel fans like me who, have a whole batch of new characters to sort of look at and enjoy and look forward to seeing in the future. But that last half hour was annoying, very disappointing, I think, especially after 6 months worth of like WandaVision, of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, of Loki, which ended excellently. You've got that contrast to this movie, which is very subpar. So that's a 2.5 for me.
Wow. Because I know how much you enjoy these movies. So that's I'm sorry to hear that you feel that way, Steve. I apologize. I didn't make the movie, but if I did, I would have tried better. Because I'm
hoping that it grows on me. But
yeah, and that's the thing. I enjoy the Marvel films, not to the same degree I think as either of you two, but they're good movies, and I own most of all of them. And so I was excited to see this. But even the fact that it didn't even succeed for me as an action movie, which was the easiest thing, surely, that this thing had to do, was just succeed as an action movie. It does not do that for me, just as a lover of spy films and that kind of thing. I was just so disappointed by what I'm just going to call mud. It's just they just threw all this stuff at the wall, hoping that in somewhere in there there'd be stuff that people would go, oh, that's really cool. There are a couple of good moments. I do like what's the dad's name again? Alexei, yeah. Alexei. I love him. He's great. I'd love to see a TV show of him and Rachel Weisz's character and what they get up to. I mean, that'd be great. I am definitely getting tired of Marvel films, and this is just me. I think I should sit down and watch some of the TV shows they're making, because I reckon a different medium might freshen it up for me a little bit, and I haven't seen any of the 3 shows they've made yet. But, I might give those a go and see how I feel about that. But for this film, it's a 2 from me.
A 2?
A 2.
Oh, there you go. Well, I just finished watching Loki, and I'm getting started on Captain and the Winter Soldier and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I think I've watched 1 episode of WandaVision. And, I feel like they're nailing that storytelling. Mm-hmm. That's really tight. But so listening to both of you, I'm thinking 2.5. But because of the character David Harbour's Alexei, it's going to be a 3, because I really enjoyed his character. And what this film does do, it sets up to see these characters in the future, and that's about it. That and her jacket.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, that's cool. And I liked Yelena, I think her sister. I thought she was really cool as well. And their mum, played by Rachel Weisz, she was great too.
Yeah.
And Natasha, she's great as well. Like, they're all good in what they do, but I'm not going to say anything new that you guys have already said. So for me, it's a 3.
Okay.
I got one last point. I've forgotten going into this film, I did read a couple of reviews they said that this film is sort of focusing on Yelena. And I do disagree with that. I think it is focusing on Natasha Romanoff. I think the problem is ScarJo is phoning it in, and Florence Pugh is there to act, and she's doing such a good job.
It's interesting. Do you think, Scarlett Johansson was she trying to get this film made, or was she kind of like, come on guys, you've already killed me, do I have to really do another movie like that?
She's an EP on it.
Yeah, so you think like she'd want to be there?
She's got an investment. Well,
This is quite speculative at this point. We have no idea what her attitudes to being in this movie was.
no. Well, that's 50%. That's 7.5 out of 15.
Wow.
Mind control pigs. Not the greatest score that we've given for a Marvel film.
No, it would be not the first Marvel film I would choose to sit down and watch.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Hey, we've been the Trail Island podcast, and you can catch us every Wednesday. This episode today, if you're listening to it on the day of release, was released a little bit late.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve, because he had to keep his secret dog
Whoopsie doodle.
on the island. But you can catch us from wherever you get your podcast. Please, if you enjoy the podcast, give it a 5-star rating and review from wherever you listen, and tell your friends as well, and maybe let them know that Steve's keeping a secret dog somewhere. Steve. I've been Alex. I've been joined by
A very present Matthew.
and
Secret dog.
and you can catch us every Wednesday from wherever you get your podcasts. I think you've done well, Steve, even though we can barely see you. This is a long line of string and cups.
I miss gently resting my hand on both of your thighs.
Good Lord. I think you've been in isolation too long, Steve.
That's why I miss it.
Oh my gosh.
He always picks his moments, like he waits till the music starts.
Yeah, he knows that I can't edit this stuff out because we've got the music playing underneath. He knows exactly what he's doing. Good night, everybody.
Good night, all.
Sleep tight, Steve.
This is a Narrative Network podcast.